So, is there anything we can do to prepare for this? Because, as you say, it kind of happens suddenly, doesn't it? Mother, father, you know, aunties, uncles, I guess, as well, taken into hospital and then suddenly come out. You're working, your kids are doing something. You know, it's a minefield. So where do we start, and can we actually prevent it?
Well, where you can start is earlier on, and it's one of those, I say to people, try and have these conversations early. We talk about so many other things, but one of the things we often avoid is talking about when our parents might become older and less able to manage. And sometimes you don't want to talk about it, sometimes they don't want to talk about it. Sometimes if you actually find, if you start broaching it, both of you want to talk about it, because if you know what people might want and how they're thinking about it, it's so much easier to plan. But what I say to people is start thinking about it, start talking about it, not in a heavy way, but just general conversations. One of the things it's one of the first questions I ask my families when they contact me is, do you have lasting powers of attorney in place? Not just do you have a will, because a will's for when someone's died, and that's relatively straightforward. The problem is, if you haven't got lasting powers of attorney in place for health and welfare or finance and property then it can be very difficult if the person becomes older and maybe gets dementia or has a fall or whatever and lacks capacity, can't make their own decisions. It can be really difficult to know what that person wanted and what's the best way to go about things. But have the conversations, just start chatting generally about how they see their future, where they see you in it or not. And then the other thing is look at they should be looking at their finances as to, you know, you can't hide money to pay for your care. You know, you need to be able to pay for your care if you can afford it, because if you're not paying for it, it's everybody else's taxes that are paying for it. So, and we've all paid our tax and national insurance at work. So there's some things we're entitled to. But take good advice on managing estate planning, they call it. So where your money is, how it's protected. You need to do that anyway for inheritance tax purposes if you've got reasonable sums of money. And certainly most of the families I deal with, the older person will be a self-funder, so they'll be paying for their social care. And, you know, if you've had good advice over the years from an independent financial advisor, from someone who's written your will about trusts and all that sort of thing, then hopefully your money is where you need it to be to support you in later life. I mean, most of us don't go into care homes. Only a small proportion of people go into care homes, and the average age of going into a residential care is 82. But many of us do find that later on we do need support at home, and we'd much rather be in our own homes if we possibly can. So it's just something to have thought about. And the other thing I talk to people about, and I know people who are occupational therapists, is as you're aging, look at your home. Are you going to be able to stay there? Or has it got lots of steps and no downstairs toilet? You know, it's that sort of planning over maybe a 10, 15 year, 20 year period. Just having these things in your head, really, as you grow older. We plan all sorts of other things, but because we generally, and I include myself, we don't want to think about getting old and infirm and needing support. We want to be independent, but it's likely to happen, so it's something you need to think about.